So during the week, after work, I typically will play a video game, usually the same kind of ones. We eat dinner at the same time. And then I go to bed, usually listening to Fresh Prince as I fall asleep. And while this is enjoyable to a degree, after a while, it just becomes routine. I don't even think about what I'm going to do that night after work or whatever. You just fall into a habit of sorts, watching the same shows, watching or doing the same thing, having the same exact routine. And the other night we watched a movie, and my wife and I never watch movies together. And I know it's so crazy to so many people that we don't watch anything, but we watched Pretty Woman with Richard Gere and Julia Roberts, an old movie. It was on Netflix. I think it still is. And we just kind of got out of our comfort zone. We did something new, and it was cool. It was cool to watch something or do something that we don't normally do. And then even after watching that movie, I was like, hey, instead of just listening to Fresh Prince before bed, let me just read a book. And even that was satisfying. And it was like at that night when I went to bed, I thought to myself, like, I mean, I know this sounds silly or such a small scale, but I did two new things that I don't normally do. And it made me think of this analogy of a roller coaster. We often get into the habit of doing the same exact things, like if we were on a roller coaster and our brain gets ingrained into the same pathways, the same neural circuitry gets run over, just like if we were on the cart of the roller coaster, it's going down the same path. And if you do that right enough, if you do that habit enough, it becomes automatic and you don't even think about it. In the way with the analogy of the roller coaster, you forget that you're on a roller coaster because you've done it so many times, it gets boring. It becomes routine, just like our habits at night. And so it becomes tougher the more you do something to notice that you are in that routine. It just becomes automatic, like brushing your teeth in the morning. And so it's like we're sleepwalking through our evenings. Now, I don't necessarily mean you're going to work, you're brushing your teeth, getting your kids ready for school, all the things that you have to do that are a part of your routine. That's a given. But the times where you have a bit of freedom, a bit of choice, that's the area that I'm talking about now. And so for me at least, switching it up in that time where we have that choice was a treat. It was refreshing, and it felt like I stepped off this habitual roller coaster that I forgot I was on. I was just like, oh wow, I didn't realize that I've been doing the same shit for so long. And then you get to experience new things, like watching Pretty Woman. Well, I would never watch that movie under normal circumstances, but it was a movie that took place in the 90s. It's a classic, and you could just see like the different, like people wore different clothes, the cars were different, and it's just a different vibe. It's a new perception that my mind isn't usually taking in. And so I got like fresher ideas. And I just felt satisfied, like I got something out of it. And the same with reading a book. I can't remember. I have a bad habit of switching books around because I have so many on Kindle, but I picked up something to read, and I was like, damn, I learned something cool. I had a new experience reading this chapter of a book. I can't remember what it was. The LSD book. I'm learning this. I'm learning about LSD. There's a book on. Oh, I forget his name, but he's a guy with a PhD who's a professor for many years, and he had like 73 LSD experiences, and he couldn't share this information with anyone while he was a professor because that would like jeopardize his career. And so he saved all of that information. He took notes on every LSD trip he had, meticulously documented it, and waited until he retired to then speak on it. And he wrote a book and saying how each of those psychedelic experiences had a meaningful, just a meaningful way of how he sees the world, and like changed how he views things, and a purging and healing of his mind and body and soul. And he talks about how it feels like you're connecting to God. And it's just like, that's amazing, and much different than watching the same Fresh Prince reruns. Now, there's nothing wrong with watching the same things when you're getting ready for bed or whatever. It can kind of make you calm, or it's so familiar that it lulls you to sleep. That's fine. But just like that book, it's just something that I typically wouldn't just do before bed, and it was just, I felt like I learned something new in life. And there's nothing wrong with doing the same things repeatedly, but at the same time, I do think it's important to switch it up, to kind of break your habits. Otherwise, you're just experiencing the same things over and over, and you're not really expanding your window of perception. And I just think that in life, I find it most enjoyable to get a variety, to learn, to experience new things, and to learn things and put yourself in places that you normally wouldn't. And to do that doesn't necessarily mean you need to go, start a rock band or travel to Africa. Now, that's cool. Do it if you want, but we can do it on such a smaller scale within the ordinary, everyday life situations, like the time after work. And a friend of mine was saying how they were watching a documentary on Thomas Jefferson, and they learned so much about his life and how he actually had a complicated life with having multiple children with slaves, and the kind of controversies that caused, and how he was actually pretty young, I think in his 20s, when he wrote, don't quote me, it's like the Declaration of Independence or Constitution, one of those, and he was young when he wrote it. It's just so many interesting things that we can learn in the world. And so I just challenge you to kind of check your inventory. And while you don't have to be psychotic and constantly trying to do new things and make it into, a stressful habit of always trying to do something new, but if you can, switch it up from time to time. I would imagine it's good for the brain. You kind of open up new neural pathways, new connections in your brain, unlock new circuitry that you didn't have before. Kind of like psychedelics. That's what LSD can do. Is like I've seen a diagram where there's a picture of a circle of like a hollowed out shape of a brain, and it shows like the typical like the lines of like activity that are usually connecting. Excuse me. And they're like lines that were colored to kind of illustrate it. And on LSD, there's so many more connections, so many more pathways that are activated. Now, I'm not saying us doing a nightly habit is going to trigger a hallucinogenic experience by any means, but it is kind of cool to think about. All right. Yeah, I think that is it. So take inventory. What is it that you are, any habits that you kind of feel stuck in? Are you doing anything? Are you doing everything the same? Maybe you could switch it up. Could be fun. Thank you all. See you next time.